I'm Pete.
I'm Stephanie, this is Herbert, and this is the Cool Part Show, our show all about innovative 3D printed parts. Herbert is helping us model one today. This is a cranial implant.
Replacement for bone in situations like this, replacement for cranial bone, is often made of material very different from bone, like titanium. Alas! But it doesn't have to be that way.
Our bone is mostly made of ceramic, and we can now 3D print with ceramic, even a material that is sort of an ingredient in our bones.
Implants, 3D printed from bone-like hydroxyapatite on this episode of the Cool Parts Show.
This episode of the Cool Part Show is brought to you by Carpenter Additive.
We're at the company's powder production facility in Athens, Alabama.
Specifically, we are standing on top of the Z1, the company's largest vacuum atomizer for producing metal powders.
Want to know how to make metal powder for additive manufacturing? Stick around after the episode. Welcome to the Cool Parts Show.
If you like stories about interesting 3D printed parts, you're in the right place. Make sure to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, and you can also sign up for our all-access email to find out about episodes like this one even earlier. Today on the show, we're going to be talking about medical implants, specifically cranial implants, and the use of 3D printing to produce patient-adapted implants like this one from a very interesting material.
So this model obviously represents a patient with a very serious condition. Maybe this is an injury, the result of a blow or trauma. Maybe the skull had to be opened up as part of a surgery to relieve pressure. In either case, the value of 3D printing is clear for producing a geometry precisely mated to this hole in the patient and a personalized implant of exactly the right shape and contour. But geometry isn't actually the most significant value of 3D printing in this case, because in this case, 3D printing also makes it possible to work with a material that is very well suited to success in this procedure.
So as we said in the cold open, the material used here is a ceramic called hydroxyapatite. We're going to learn more about that material in a moment. But first, let's talk a little bit more about the kinds of situations that might cause a patient to need an implant like this and how those conditions have been treated up till now. I want to introduce Dr. Christoph Stadegel. He is an attending physician in the Cranio-Maxillofacial department at the Kepler University Clinic located in Linz, Austria.
The part you're holding is a cranial implant to reconstruct parts of the cranium. Cranium is the part of the skull that covers the brain, basically the brain case, so to say. There are some conditions, especially when the pressure inside of the brain rises, you need to relieve the pressure. And to do this, you remove part of the skull. That's called an osteoclastic trepanation. And as soon as the swelling has gone down and the underlying medical condition has been resolved, usually you replant the piece of the bone to cover the part of the skull. In some cases, about 30%, this does not work because the body does not accept the transplant, or let's say the transplant, the part of the bone that's been removed, or because there is some sort of infection. And these kind of cranial implants that you see here are a possible solution for this problem. The current standard of care, the gold standard right now is autologous bone, meaning the bone of the patient that's been removed during the first surgery. If this does not work, currently there are some materials that we can use. The next best thing to the patient's own bone is either titanium or PEEK, a polymer.
So if the patient's own bone is not available, then the alternative is typically PEEK or titanium. The question there relates to the body's acceptance of that material. The strength of this repair is greater to the extent that the patient's remaining bone around the implant is able to grow into and fuse tightly with that implant. Bone integration, osseointegration, is the issue we're talking about. And the very best case is a material that is just like bone, that bone wants to naturally grow into and fuse with. Bone is mostly made out of a mineral, hydroxyapatite. So why not make an implant out of that material?
This material, hydroxyapatite, is a great material for the body. The body already knows this, so it's highly biocompatible. It's non-toxic. Under the right conditions, it can get resorbed, and it leads to the ingrowth of bone cells. These properties are called osteoinduction, means that this material can lead to the production of new bone on the implant site, as well as osteoconduction, which means that that bony cells and bony matrix grows along the surface of this implant. And this whole process leads to osseointegration.
So osseointegration, that is the goal, and hydroxyapatite will get you most of the way there. But how do we actually make implants from this material? How do we adapt them to the size and shape needed for the patient's specific situation and injury? How do we 3D print with this ceramic? In this case, Christoph is collaborating with a company also located in Austria called Lithos. We've actually covered them on the show before in an episode about a more experimental type of implant. But they have developed a 3D printing process that is specifically for printing ceramic materials. So I want to introduce for the second time in the show, Dr. Daniel Bums. He is the Director for Medical Solutions at Lithos.
So we have been working with Dr. Staudiger for a lot of years already. The Kepler University clinics where Dr. Staudiger works is known for their specialty in craniomaxillofacial surgery, which again is a surgical area where Lithos can contribute a lot to. So we just successfully finished a research project which is called Inkplant, or which was called Inkplant, where we could quite successfully show what can be done in combination of different kind of biocompatible ceramic materials. And we are currently already setting up a follow-up project.
So biocompatible ceramics. Hydroxyapatite is a mineral our bones are made of. It is arguably a ceramic. An additive manufacturing process that is very effective with ceramics, lithography-based ceramic manufacturing, a DLP process, digital light processing, involves a liquid polymer resin. The ceramic material is suspended in that to create a slurry. Light is used to solidify that slurry, layer by layer by layer by layer, to build the form. When the liquid is removed, when the form is sintered, the result is this dense, solid, hard, completed ceramic part. Here's Daniel again.
This implant is made of hydroxyapatite, or more specifically of Lithobone HA480, which is a material used in 3D printing of ceramics. So Lithobone HA480 is a suspension of hydroxyapatite powder in a photocurable binder system. We call that a slurry. So this slurry is 3D printed within the lithography-based ceramic manufacturing process, which is also known as LCM. After the printing, the part is cleaned from excess slurry and baked at high temperature. This temperature treatment will remove the photocurable binder in a thermally fashion. So it's broken down into small molecules and by the heat and then burned off. This process is also called debinding, and as it says, it means removal of the binder. Thereafter, the residual ceramic part is consolidated by further increasing the temperature up to a sintering temperature. This sintering converts a chalk-like, off-white, brittle intermediate part to its final properties. So during this process, the part shrinks to its final dimension, and also it develops its properties like biocompatible, being stable, and in the case of hydroxyapatite, for example, it changes from off-white to some light blue color.
So lithography-based ceramic manufacturing, LCM, brings a lot of the advantages that we've come to expect from additive manufacturing. So the ability to build porosity or lattice work into an implant like this, again, kind of open up, make space for those bone cells to grow in. It's also allowing these implants to be sized and shaped correctly for each individual patient. Cranial implants are less common than, say, spine implants or hip implants, and so there's not really a need to standardize them. Instead, implants like this will be designed to be adapted, to be tailored a little bit to each individual patient. That means that before the 3D printing can happen, there are some other steps that are needed to capture the patient's anatomy to make those design decisions before actually printing the final implant.
We schedule a CT scan. The CT scan has to have some special parameters in order to get an accurate representation of the bony structures.
From the CT, the surgeon can then upload those medical imaging data to a platform typically provided by the medical implant manufacturer, where the surgeon or the team of surgeons can then, together with a team of biomedical engineers, design the implant itself and plan the whole surgery, including how will the patient look like or move like after the successful treatment.
And as soon as we're satisfied with the implant design, it goes into production.
Is it possible now to receive a 3D printed hydroxyapatite cranial implant? No, but we're not far from that. The idea of the personalized implant, that is established, a cranial implant tailored to the specific patient. The new elements that need to be validated are the manufacturing process, this new material. Christoph is in Austria, so keep in mind he's talking about Europe, but here is the way forward that he sees.
Most manufacturers go the so-called patient-matched route. That means it's not a completely custom implant. There is a design envelope like a minimal thickness and some certain standardized material properties that we have to work and plan around. For 3D printed craniomaxillofacial implants, we are currently finishing up the Inkplant project. It's been an EU-funded project where we assessed together with some of our consortium partners, including Lithos, new materials for these implants. And the results are really positive. We want to go ahead with a clinical trial with a new implant design in the next couple of months.
All right, I think we got this.
All right, this is a 3D printed cranial implant made from hydroxyapatite, a ceramic material that's already present in our bones. It was 3D printed with lithography-based ceramic manufacturing, a process developed by Lithos that allows for printing a solid hydroxyapatite implant and also makes it possible to customize the size and shape of each implant for the specific patient.
So 3D printing is already the most effective process for quickly, reliably creating a tailor-made implant. But add to that the fact that there is an effective 3D printing process for ceramics means we can print with a ceramic material that is very close to the same material that our bones are made of. The patient's remaining natural bone is going to want to bond with this implant that it sees as more bone.
One issue around patient-adapted implants like this that we didn't get into in this episode is where they should be manufactured. Should they continue to be made by off-site producers, as they are now, or should they be 3D printed maybe on-site at the hospital? Daniel had more to say about this in a segment that we shared with our All Access subscribers, but you can sign up for free, see that segment as well, just by going to thecoolpartshow.com/allaccess.
In addition, Christoph, our surgeon, when we were talking to him, he kind of took us down a side road of the history of osseointegration, the discovery of this phenomenon, how it was discovered. We couldn't use it in the episode, but it was super interesting. We were interested. We think you will be too. Our All Access members can see that too. thecoolpartshow.com/allaccess.
And if you have a cool part that you'd like to see featured on the show, please email us coolparts@additivemanufacturing.media.
Thank you for watching. This episode's brought to you by Carpenter Additive. We are at the company's powder production facility in Athens, Alabama, and we are standing on top of an atomizer. The Z1 is Carpenter Technology's largest vacuum atomizer, and it is the heart of the process for making additive manufacturing metal powder here at Carpenter Additive.
This facility is capable of producing up to 18,000 pounds of metal powder per day. Plant manager Jordan Ralph talked us through the process.
So an atomizer is a piece of equipment that is capable of melting and pouring molten metal into the stream of high pressure gas that turns that molten metal into tiny, tiny droplets that ultimately cool and form our powder, which looks like gray dust. So to start our process and the ultimate end-to-end solution that we have here, we bring in raw materials all the way down to individual elements, so nickel, cobalt, chrome, moly, niobium. We bring all of those raw materials into the shop. We utilize those materials to build charges that go into the atomizer. As you walk that flow path, you run through our charge makeup area where all of the materials are weighed out in very exact quantities. That ensures that we're able to hit our customer specifications and hold the tight tolerances that we're looking for on a chemistry perspective. From there, the material is flown to the top of the atomizer and charged into the furnace. As the material is produced, it's poured out and is collected at the bottom of the atomizer. The material is then taken and transferred into a bulk container for processing through the rest of the value stream. The next stop for any of our atomized powder would be the screener. So that will remove the coarse portion of the powder. From there, we take it through air classification. That takes the fine portion of the particle size distribution out and makes the final cut for an additive material, like a 10 to 45. From there, we stack up all of those individual lots and put them into the 12,000 pound blender to make the single homogeneous blends. At that point, we are able to pack in any configuration that the customer is looking for, whether that be drums, bottles, powder trace hoppers. Really, we've got a lot of options to meet customers' needs there. The atomization capability and all of the powder capabilities gives us a unique position where we're actually able to produce the powder, run testing through additive machines all the way through HIP and heat treat, do final testing on those products, and then make additional changes or try to optimize things like our chemistry or sizing so that we ultimately can serve our customers better.